welcome back. We are continuing with the second panel today on industry and academia, moderated by Johan Pauwels.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. One of the things I like personally about this community and this conference is that it's a place where industry and academia can meet. And if you go to some other conferences, you might see that it's quite unique in this regard. So let's quickly start with the poll. If you are affiliated with academia, could you raise your hand? So I see some representation. And if you're not affiliated to academia? And of the ones in industry, how many of you are in a company of 5 persons or less? Yeah, 5. One is less than 5. And then the rest, how many of you are in slightly bigger companies? Or enormous companies as well? Anything more than 5? Okay, that's very nice. We have a quite good representation. So we see that we're here united in web audio, but our daily lives might be quite different depending on what we exactly do. And this panel is just to get to know each other a bit better. So we have 3 panelists representing the different options for working with web audio. We have Norbert Schnell from Furtwangen University, Rebekah Wilson from Source Elements, and Hiroyuki Takakura from CodeNinth. So just as a starter, please introduce yourself, and maybe we have 2 of the keynote speakers, so I hope by now you've seen them, but maybe give us a short overview of your working situation and maybe historical working situation as well. Side button, yeah, no.
Hi, good morning. I am Hiroyuki Takakura from Tokyo, Japan. I have worked as an engineer, and I have run a tiny company called CodeNinth. So we demonstrated our product yesterday. So recently we have launched Ongak.js, which that was demonstrated yesterday. Thank you for inviting me as a panelist with such great. So do we call it legendary panelists? Thank you.
I'm Rebekah. The last 15 years, I've been the co-founder and co-CEO of Source Elements. We make networked, near real-time software networking for post-production, film and TV. We also make a lot of tools for sound and digital audio workstations to facilitate remote collaboration. And we are all distributed around the globe. We don't have a central office. And I also don't really live anywhere, so I move around sort of depending on where I need to be at any one time. And so we really built our culture around this as a business. So we certainly do eat our own dog food, as they say.
Hello, Norbert Schnell. I don't know if I'm a typical representative of the academic world, but definitely I'm always working for institutions, which is not a concept from my side, but certainly an observation. I have worked 22 years for IRCAM, a research center and a place where contemporary music is produced in the center of Paris. And since 2 years, I'm teaching in a small university in the center of the Black Forest, called Furtwangen University.
Okay, for the audience, we invite you to submit questions, either just raising your hand or contacting us through the Slack channel. And if there's anyone watching at home, please use the Slack channel for questions. But maybe to start things off, I hope you're all very happy in your current position. But if there's one aspect of other types of positions you're kind of envious of, what would those be? If anyone wants to take the mic.
No, so let's start from this side. I don't consider myself as old, but I have been now fiddling around with audio and interactivity for 30 years, which is quite some time, and I'm really enjoying teaching. This is really a choice, which means working with creative young people. This is what I really enjoy in my job.
Sounds nice. The thing that I really miss these days is I remember back when I had more time, I could, a new technology would come out, say maybe a new API or something, and I could spend a week or a couple of weeks just, messing around building something for the hell of it, and I don't really get to do that anymore because my time, I have to dedicate, my practical mind time to working on the tools that are, are business related because I have responsibility of a team. So that's something that I really miss.
So, well, I don't have my boss and I have few colleagues who helps me. So when I was ill or when I catch cold or something, so no one helped me. So that is never occurred in a company or university or big affiliation. So sometimes I am embarrassed of that.
Well, thanks, and that automatically leads us to the question, what is the best part of your job? Which you kind of answered, but...
Wasn't that already the last question?
It was in there, yeah.
What do you envy of other people's jobs? You can answer that one next.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the worst part?
So what would you like of our jobs?
Okay.
I'm happy for you, Norbert.
I must think for...
Have nothing, that's great.
By the way, I forgot that once a year I'm working as a freelance developer with colleagues and friends on museum projects or something. So I have some of this. If there would be something, it would be, of course, if you're working like I am for institutions, you're of course in contact with real people and real problems and so on, but then there is this industry thing there. People were thinking of what people really need and what you really can sell to people and all that, and of course there's something very interesting in there. But I have some of that in my life, and no, I don't envy you of anything.
That's great. Well, on a related note, what I really enjoy about being in business is having a really specific goal. And so having, a really fixed product that needs to be finished and finding solutions to that, or maybe, if necessary, finding shortcuts to it, or, making decision that you can't have a feature on a certain date or whatever, just to be able to release something because you know that people are going to use it. And I really, really love having a user base who find immense practical use out of what I build. It's very, 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 very satisfying, and I don't think I would give that up for anything.
So, well, as an engineer, it is a great part of my job to use what I acquire directly. I can use what I acquire directly. And the more thing I can do, and the more opportunity I get to do business with many people. And as a manager, so I can decide almost everything about me without obeying someone. So if you love to be free, there is a better way to be a freelancer, I think.
Yeah, I found it. It's to spend money without asking anybody. This is what I can't do.
Any audience questions yet? Yeah.
So there are a lot of different models that people have had for academia to be able to work with industry and industry to work with academia. I was curious from your perspective how you would like the other entity, what your ideal situation would be if you're in industry, how you would like it to be able to interface with academia and what they would provide for you, or if you're in academia, how you would like to be able to interface with industry and what they would provide in your academic situation. So, from both sides.
For me?
I think it's from both sides. I would love to hear each of your thoughts on it.
I'm going to go and say I actually feel like I'm participating with academia quite well because I went back to do my master's 3 years ago. And because I'd spent 10 years, I stopped being a composer, I stopped writing music, I just sort of immersed myself in business. It's like a cure for what I'd been doing before. And then I found that I wanted to actually use my tools as an artist. And that, so then going back to university put me back into academia, and now I go to conferences, I write papers, you know, I think about theory a lot. And what I found is that there's a conflict there for sure, is that, you know, every business has trade secrets and every business has like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm really, really cognizant of this conflict. I think it's something that's really important that we all have to be aware of. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot more scope for innovation than we all realize. And I think competition is is amazing. I love competition. And I also think that one of the great things about conferences like this is you can talk about an idea and then someone goes and build it. And you just like to see something built. It doesn't be that I have to build it. But then in terms of the interaction with academia, I love how it makes me think about my position in the world and in business, and going in back and forth from them just enriches my life and enriches my business life and enriches, I think, my academic interests, if I said that okay.
Just playing devil's advocate, you like the cooperation with academia. Is there something specific that cooperation with other industries cannot deliver? Is it harder to cooperate with different industries because they're in a way competitors, or?
Yeah, there's a wonderful conflict with competition in business. It's just constant. You know, it's a game. You just have to sort of wear it as a cloak. As I'm wearing, you know, when you go to an industry conference, you're talking to your competitors. You all know that there's this bristling sort of tension there, but I like it very much. I think it's just something we have to deal with, and I'm not pretending it's not there. But, you know, it can get to be a problem, and I think it's a lot more emotional than we all realize. You know, like sometimes you might get some brilliant person working with you and then they go work for the competition. How do you deal with that? It's really emotional. You have to deal with it, you know, and that can happen, I'm sure, in academia as well. If you see professors moving to other schools and stuff, you guys must deal with that a lot as well.
There's one element of answer I would like to, you know, you said requirements. So, you know, I'm very sensitive to this.
If I might, I mean, looking at like things like the technology transfer and licensing and different ways that they can interact with each other, and it just seems like every situation is a little different, but I'm kind of putting that out to you.
One thing I would say, across entities, I think it's important that we don't formulate things as requirements. You could do the same between artists and technologists in academia and industry and so on. You can't always say, yeah, I would like the others to be like that and do that for me, and I could no. And in fact, even across domains, there's competition because it's two methods to see the world too. I mean, and they are complementary, so they can work together, but they're also kind of having their own dynamics. Of course, it's not that academia is there to deliver technology to industry, or you know, that come up, you know, and it happens, and that's great, you know, and so on. The other element of answer, I forgot it. Will come back.
Well, that's another thing, you know, we haven't mentioned here is also open source. You know, there's also another conflict there between business and open source, and maybe between academia and open source. I don't know if there's any conflict there.
There shouldn't be.
Right, there shouldn't be. Does that mean there is?
I'm not so much aware of it. Maybe, I don't know. I hope not. No, I hope not. I mean, Yeah, let's be honest. In some institutions there is. I mean, for example, the institution I worked for, which is a research institution, didn't want to do open source, let's be honest, and it's a research institution. Thank you for holding the microphone. And apparently there is, even there, a conflict, but it's a scandal, that's all.
Well, in an ideal world, when I work with open source, we pay for licenses, and I think that that's the relationship that has to work. So, yeah.
Hiroyuki?
Yes. So this, recently, so it becomes more easy to connect people from other entity without switching their affiliation. So now we can use crowdfundings, or we can message each other with Slack and any favorite tools, and we can gather as a project, and phase of the project. As the phase of the project changes, the team will be bigger and smaller, so it is very easy to fit. So I mean, it is not so important to which affiliate or which entity to belong to, but how it is important to explain our personality, our specialty, and we can connect to individuals. We can connect as an individual to other individuals. So yes.
Shall we move on? Any more audience questions over there?
Hello, I think the panel was very interesting. So I have industry experience only. I don't have a degree, and I have a lot of colleagues that also don't have. And I was wondering, what are we missing out by not being to academia? And second questions, what are the challenges that we might face when going there? Because things in the industry move very different. And yeah.
I can definitely say what's been amazing for me when I went back to academia was being able to allocate time on a project that didn't have a goal of something that needed to be sold in some way. And it's really great for the brain, which just feeds back into everything in your life. You know, it gives you energy, it gives you ideas that you want to feed back into business. It's just a win situation. Oh, the first question was, what's the benefit of going into doing academic work when you were just in industry?
Yeah, what are we missing out by not being to academia when we have our industry background?
No, I mean, I think what industries taught me, what going back into academia taught me was how to do research, how to do broad research, really research on a very wide level, and how to make connections of information. I just think in general it's the kind of thinking that you don't do in industry, because usually, you wake up in the morning and you look at your task for the day, build X that does Q, and then you go on Stack Overflow and you learn how to do it, but then you forget. But then it's way more interesting if the question was framed differently. You learn how to frame things, like how to know why X and Y Z does. I don't have a degree in computer science. My degree is in music, but I know that when I taught myself programming, it was to go straight to the computer science books first, rather than looking, how to just learn a language. So I think maybe that's a similar thing. But most people in computer, as a program industry, have some background in computer science, I would say. And I don't know how many computer sciences degrees are academic or practical. I don't really know much about that.
Hiroyuki?
Thanks.
Okay. More audience questions coming, so very nice to see that.
I feel like we should have some elevator music.
Yep.
Hi, and first of all, thank you. I just want to go a little bit back on the open source argument, and also giving a reference to the earlier panel. I also some time ago retweeted a tweet from GitHub that said open source has won. I actually retweeted a comment on that because it's not actually that true, and I think. The academia has a structure that, just like companies, doesn't allow you very much for this to be fully true. And I mean, if you look at history, you know, a lot of findings and awesome things that have been done belong to, say, IBM and so on, and Dell. But what I really mean is the architecture companies have and the academia is not just like open source. You know, open source to me, what it really means is this distributed kind of collective intelligence that might, you know, evolve and self-organize into something better. And you know, the closed way companies, you know, with or without competition, which might be interesting also to think about, is just not to like. So I would like to ask just. If you have a comment on this.
I'm very proud to come from a country that we abolished software patents. We don't have patents in New Zealand anymore. We also don't have subsidies. We just, and I think that this is I'm fiercely anti-patent. I really believe that competition happens in the market. Whoever builds it best and whoever, you know, attracts the market best, that's how you should grow your business. It's not through underhanded ways of, you know, having the government help you out, which we all know happens behind closed doors with corruption. And so in regards to whether open source is one or not, that's a really good question. I think we could have a whole new conference on that question. But I know that the same way that all of us use the internet to learn how to program and to learn how to find new things, we, you know, even when we're just asking a question, say on Stack Overflow or Hacker News or something, we're sharing information that way. And I think a lot of the information gets disseminated just through our conversations, through our discussions. And certainly, you know, half the time I'm finding the answer I need in the third comment of some thread. And I think it is winning. I would say that it is winning on that just respect, and we just have to keep really embracing. I'm sorry, I'm rambling right now. Go open source. I don't know. Where I say that as a closed source company, so it's really. But we contribute a lot to open source. We pay licenses. We do merge. You know, we submit pull requests. I mean, we do as much as we can. With given the limitations of what we're working with, which is actually a lot to do with the partners that we work with. We work with Avid and ProTools and Steinberg. We're limited a lot by the choices that they've made. So I have often said to my team that, you know, given when someone in Linux makes a really, really kick-ass door, and we could tell Avid to, you know, maybe, not tell Avid, but to be able to work with more freely available resources, then, you know, we could make a lot more of our stuff open source too. But we do have those limitations because of the industry we're in.
I can throw in a quick question then. What does this difference between industry and academia imply for web audio as a community and as the conference itself can be on a practical level or on a more philosophical level even?
So I'm this virtual chair of this conference as a founder, right? And the only thing I repeat from year to year. When I am asked, because I'm the only guy you could ask, I guess, if you want to ask AI, you know, we would like to work, it always comes to me, and the only thing I always repeat is WAC, of course, is about web audio, and web audio is not just the web audio, blah, 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 that's one thing. And the other is, web audio is a conference that is oriented on the model of a techno-scientific conference like NIME, DAFEX, and all that on one side. And on the other side, it's oriented on web conferences. And the only thing I really would wish, and we must look how that is possible. There are some contradictions. The only thing I really would wish for this conference that it stays somewhere in the middle. And you know, this is not really a question of industry and academics, by the way, but you know, as well to integrate, of course, people who are not affiliated at all, because this is the great thing about web conferences, that they gather people who are not affiliated to anybody, and that we must think as well that they are not. It's not just industry and academics, but there's industry, academics, and freelancers at least, or you know, we can come up with other categories. And I would like to ask, just like that, and we can discuss it here and there and everywhere, again the question, are we complete here? Do we enough to include everybody? And there's different ideas about how we do this to have everybody here.
I think we have time for one very quick question. Then I can... Oh, yeah, we have one.
Just a quick follow-up from that one. I wonder if there are any ideas about how we think about affiliation and how people's affiliations are presented. So if you have unaffiliated people, is that presented as a kind of lack or an absence? If I work for a company, am I always affiliated with that company? Same question for an academic institution.
I often publish papers without an affiliation because I don't feel that they're relevant to my business. I don't have an affiliation with my university, so or sometimes I might do it in collaboration with some people at STEIM. So it depends on what I'm doing at the time, but a lot of my stuff is unaffiliated. And I think it's quite strange that so much of the papers require an affiliation. You know, it seems to be very important, but is that just some kind of tradition?
I think on the academic side, it's kind of obliged. Basically, whatever you do, depends on the institution, obviously, but most of the time, even whatever you do in your free time, is kind of, you're still affiliated with that institution.
Like business.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be clear that no contribution to the WAC requires an affiliation, right? No. And then there are two models for now how we could include everybody. One is the Berlin model. The Berlin model is that we said, okay, there are people who won't pay. They won't pay when they present something, and on the other side, of course, in academia, it's you know, the business model is that the institution pays for having their speakers at conferences. So we had to solve this somehow, and the solution we came up with for Berlin is that we said, okay, in the submission you could ask for waiving the fee for the conference. To the cost that you will present without affiliation. If you have an affiliation, whatever it is, the affiliation has to pay for your contribution. And the Trondheim model is that there is the diversity. We forgot to transmit this, I must admit, to Anna and her team. Sorry, and got lost this idea somewhere. I mean, it was obviously obvious. It was the model we had. It was obvious in the submission, you know. And so the Trondheim solution is to have a diversity fund, and that could be another solution to include everybody. So, you know, whoever.
I feel like we can keep on talking for hours. Are we allowed to? No? Then I'm afraid this is the end. I'd like to thank all the panelists for coming.